because we are having murderers deported, child sex offenders, rapists, and yet these protesters are doing everything within their power to try to obstruct.
That's a key point, Rita. They aren't really protesting. What they're doing is interfering with these ICE agents who are trying to enforce federal law. That is a federal crime. You cannot impede and interfere with law enforcement. They'll do things like they'll park their vehicles perpendicular across the street. So they'll try to trap ICE agents in a particular place so they can't get out and go about their law enforcement duties. They harass them in a multitude of ways. And it's a crime, and yet they are not being punished.
And these protesters aren't just agitated about ICE and deportation. They're also upset about the focus that has been on the fraud in your state, the fraud perpetrated mainly by segments of the Somalian community. Tell me a little bit about that. Do we yet know the full scale of this fraud?
Well, Rita, we know some of it. The Feeding Our Future scandal is kind of the headline here. It has been for the last 4 years. In the Feeding Our Future scandal, so far, 78 people have been charged, 57 have been convicted. There have been a couple of trials as well as guilty pleas, and there are more charges pending. That's a $500 million theft. But the assistant U.S. attorney who has prosecuted those Feeding Our Future cases says that they've been investigating the $18 billion in Medicaid spending in Minnesota over the last few years. And he's concluded that at least one half of that $18 billion has been stolen by fraudsters. So we're probably looking at a fraud here of $10 billion or more.
Astonishing. And the next state that's going to have some scrutiny is going to be California. It'll be fascinating to see what's uncovered there. Your governor, the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, the man who could have been vice president, is going to step down. How culpable is he for the dysfunction in Minnesota?
Rita, he is highly culpable. He's absolutely responsible. He has actively encouraged resistance to federal authority. I call him the Jefferson Davis of the 21st century. He's threatened to call out the Minnesota National Guard to fight against ICE. And he mused in a press conference about being at war with the federal government. The man is an absolute disgrace, and he bears a lot of responsibility for what is going on now in Minneapolis.
You know what? He was a figure of mockery, really, throughout that presidential campaign. Tampon Tim, he was called, because he was putting tampons in boys' bathrooms across his state. But really, he is such a dangerous figure. And you think about that election 2024 now, and what would have happened if we did have a Kamala Harris, Tim Walz team in the White House today?
Rita, all we can say is we're all grateful that that didn't happen. I mean, Walz was a laughingstock during that campaign, but I think in the time that's gone by since, more people have realized that he's not just a laughingstock, he's really a menace. And, he is not running for re-election. He had announced that he was running for re-election. He's now changed his mind, is going to step down at the end of this term. And obviously that's because of all of the turmoil that has been going on.
Now, you mentioned about the local police not maintaining order. That's something that has been noted by people who have been observing what's been happening in Minneapolis and elsewhere in Minnesota. We've had protesters just behave appallingly. Stephen Miller, the commentator, not the Trump administration, Stephen Miller, he points out that in recent days, we've seen these protest groups chase innocent men out of a diner, attack an innocent guy on the street who was actually with them. They harassed an innocent guy in an SUV, demanding that he show his ID. They blocked an innocent guy because his rental car plates, and they've now stormed a church service, as we played earlier. And he says, I haven't seen a single Minneapolis police officer in any of the video footage. How is that possible? What is happening there within the police force, and what orders are they receiving in terms of how to handle these protests?
Well, it's because Minneapolis is a sanctuary city.